In today's business update, we'll be talking about first regarding the box office receipts with regards to the recent release of Black Widow and also Space Jam, A New Legacy, the sequel to the Michael Jordan Space Jam film. How did they fare? Well, according to Variety.com, the second week slump or sophomore slump, both films, as mentioned, quickly sank at the box office. Now, what was the reason behind this? Was it because the film was terrible, or was the other extenuating circumstances that led to this decline? Anyway, so obviously both films are produced, namely by Disney as well as Warner Brothers. Now, what's interesting here, the decline was pretty steep in their second week of release alone, as much as 70%. So, could this be because the films are not doing well in itself because the films are not good? I mean, for my personal taste, I wouldn't watch the sequel to Space Jam 2 in a sense that, why would people watch it? Watch Looney Tunes characters which hasn't been popular for several years. I mean, I grew up watching Looney Tunes when I was younger, so it made sense when they produced or released the Space Jam film. You know, kids my age or my age group had affinity with those characters, so it made sense. Whoever was the best player at the time, which was Michael Jordan, to create a film or collaboration with those two. In this case, the Space Jam New Legacy, it's LeBron James' turn. In this case, it's sort of more of a advertisement for Warner Brothers to showcase their different IPs, which is kind of overkill, and obviously it's catered more to a younger audience, so kudos for them if they're able to do well. But in terms of the not the core demographic, but in terms of the older audience, in case my age or even older, why would I waste my time watching a terrible film which, to focus on the basketball game, which, turned to a sort of out of this world experience, which obviously, didn't make sense to begin with, and with the sequel it goes to another level. So obviously kids would enjoy it, but obviously would they generate hundreds or even billions of dollars here? Same goes for the film in Black Widow. Now obviously, Black Widow is part of the MCU franchise, so a lot of people, or especially in the Disney studios, are expecting to generate a lot of revenue here. But with the performance here, I think the audience have spoken in regards to the film, whether it was terrible or other factors, which we'll talk about a little bit. And it was mentioned here, according to Eric Handler, an exhibition industry analyst with MKM Partners, mentions that, obviously you have avid moviegoers who will watch films, whatever films was released on a particular period. But the question is, how about the rest of the people who are, you can say, less passionate about films here? Now, obviously, this was a strategy that not just Disney implemented, but as well as Warner Brothers and other major studios to, coupled with the decline or limitations of people being able to watch the films in movie theaters, they offered, subscription streaming services to for them to watch the latest films, which what they did for Disney Plus subscribers, and you also have HBO Max. Now, obviously, if you're a movie theater owner, there's going to be a lot of cannibalization that's going to happen. And according to Handler, he just says that. And even according to the National Association of Theater Owners, or NATO, he mentions that the many questions raised by Disney's limited release of streaming data opening weekend are being rapidly answered by Black Widow's disappointing and anomalous performance here. And what would think that, is it because of the cannibalization as mentioned, or is it both? Obviously, offering your movies immediately after its release or simultaneous release with its movie theater release is not going to bode well. And obviously, based on years data, that if you want to maximize profitability or generating revenue, you want people watching your films in movie theaters. That's where the maximum revenue that you could get. And as the data shows, in case of Avengers Endgame, they were able to generate as much as $1 to $2 billion here. And if you're going to offer this in a streaming services, you may have to get the same result. And obviously, giving consumers or moviegoers options. Some may say, why would you even bother? right? It's totally different, the experience of watching it in a cinema versus just watching it at home by yourself with your friends and family and so forth. And obviously the results speaks for themselves. And even what's interesting here, the strategy what Disney and even Warner Brothers implemented has cost them an opportunity cost in terms of leaving a lot of money on the table, because people are finding other alternatives instead of just watching films or movies in general. Maybe look for other source of entertainment. Gaming is another, or even sporting events, since you have football, baseball, basketball, you name it. And even now we have the Olympics that's occurring right now, which we'll talk about in a bit. Anyway, so obviously it prevents your movie goers from expanding from its core audience. So it limits your growth and your target audience. And don't expect to get a massive haul in terms of sales. You can just take a look at the recent release of the Fast and Furious Fast 9, of how it fared. So obviously the cinema is still the biggest draw for generating a lot of revenue here. And even moviegoers on masses opted to watch from their couch or skip them altogether, which is not a good sign if you're a movie studio here. And as I mentioned earlier, with regards to the Fast and Furious series, or even Paramount's A Quiet Place Part 2, they had a decline in their second week, as much as almost 70% as well, correspondingly, but they were able to steadily held as the top grossing films in North America for this year. So you could just imagine, the movie theaters is still key to gaining traction in terms of generating performance. And obviously ticket sales plummeted more than dramatically than expected. But if those studios are expecting, because a lot of people are vaccinated, so people are going back to their normal activities, which goes back to the main issue: are the films worth watching? Obviously, in my case, for the Marvel films, it's getting too saturated, or people are getting too much Marvel films. And outside of the main characters of the Avengers films, are we still interested in watching the sequels? Maybe for Black Panther, who's going to play the main character there. And then you also have uh, Doctor Strange. And then who's next, right? Anyway, so we still have to wait and see. And at the end of the day, as mentioned here, high visibility movies will get big openings, which is a good sign. But the sudden drama, it's not going to go away anytime soon here. And obviously, if you're going to offer several alternatives for people to watch your films, then especially if you don't wait, typically, right, what they would normally do is release it for several weeks or even months before they would even release to streaming services, or in this case, DVD at the time, or even now Blu-ray, so that you get the maximum opportunity to generate the highest revenue as much as possible, to get all the hype necessary. And then after a few weeks it tapers off. Then people could, if you want to watch it again, you can watch it in other services, whether you watch it, you rent DVDs, if Blockbuster was still there, and then you have streaming services, then people can watch it. But again, my issue with the streaming services, not everyone is subscribed to your services. So how can people watch it? That's why the movie experience, or watching in movie theaters, is pretty significant. And studios like Disney, who wants to hold on to your cash, are not achieving that to maximum, to varying success. So we'll see if they'll change their strategies anytime soon in the future. Anyway, going to in sports, as mentioned earlier, so you have the NBA, which recently concluded, which the Milwaukee Bucks was the champion this year. So congratulations to Giannis Antetokounmpo for winning multiple awards, having been two-time MVP before, and then Defensive Player of the Year, then now NBA Finals MVP. Now, what's interesting here, what are the benefits of obviously the culmination of hard work in, from his upbringing, from where he started to growing up in Greece, and now being an NBA champion, right? So one would think that he would focus more on, trying to win more championship, which I think he's trying to do that if it allows. But what's interesting here, according to the article at Forbes.com, it mentions that now that Giannis has cemented his status as one of the best players or the face of the NBA, there's an added benefit, which is how much more could he make here? Now, obviously, earning what do you call this? Millions of dollars from his salary and then from his endorsements could significantly increase with his success on court. So will this translate to success off court obviously. So obviously, according to Dr. Tim Derdenger, an associate professor at Carnegie Mellon's Tepper School of Business, obviously this takes into another level, obviously surpassing LeBron James in terms of who's at the apex right now. And this can open a lot of opportunities for him in terms of lucrative endorsements, sponsorships, and whatnot. Not that he's not having doesn't have any sponsorships right now. So right now he's currently signed to a 5-year contract of a little over 200 million. So earning 40 million a year, which is not bad, but obviously having this prestige of being an NBA champion, a lot of brands would like to attach to him, similar to previous, NBA champions, whether it's Steph Curry partnering with Under Armour, then you have LeBron James partnering with Nike, and then having I think almost a lifetime contract in the north of a billion. Then you have Michael Jordan, obviously synonymous with the Nike brand or the Jordan brand in this case, and he typically earns 25 million annually in terms of endorsements alone. But with this increased success, one would think that this would even climb higher. So could go as high as 35 million or even 40 million according to Derdenger here. And obviously, it would depend if Giannis' goal here is to maximize his visibility, not just on court, but also off court here. Now, would this distract him from on court performance? Even though he's still considered young, 26 years old, which is, he's still a long ways to go. So there's a big chance he could have multiple repeats of NBA championships here. And what's interesting here, a consultant in the name of Mark Ganes, he can even be a spokesperson to promote the brand Louis Vuitton, not just Nike, obviously, luxurious brands that associates with prestige and success. So obviously it makes sense for them to partner. So maybe even Omega or even Rolex, just to name a few brands that would like to partner with him. But the question is, will this be a priority to him? Now, obviously, you have other sports athletes, namely you have Ronaldo, who's earning tens of or hundreds of millions of dollars from endorsements. So can you manage both? Obviously, similar to how LeBron is, capitalizing on his success right now by launching a new, going to the films, but at the twilight of his career, to varying success. But anyway, so question is, will he pursue this path as he ascends to, or has reached the peak of NBA success here? Now, obviously, at the end of the day, he has already this global presence. So other brands, not just in the United States, but as well as in his country, in Greece or other countries, in Europe, would like to partner with him, would be tremendous here. And obviously, his story alone, actually, there's a book that was, I forgot who the author was, and then I think Disney bought the rights for his life story. So check out for that one sometime in the future, wherein the Giannis Antetokounmpo story will be showcased here. So to give us a better insight of how Giannis struggled from a young age to where he is today. Obviously it's a feel good story. His remarkable rise from his humble beginnings to where he is right now. It's a film that that's made for Hollywood, as mentioned here. What's interesting here is that he only started playing in 2008 when he was, I think, yeah, he was only 13. So to go from there to where he is right now in the span of 12 years, 13 years, he has come a long way. Obviously, it's not the same as with other athletes who were homegrown in the United States. So he had a lot of obstacles to overcome to be able to reach the pinnacle of his success. So congrats to him, more power, and hopefully he can bring more hardware to the Milwaukee City here. Anyway, next we will be talking about some local news with regards to, we were talking about, the city has been trying to make improvements, to make it easier to decongest the traffic in the metro here. And one of the main ways that they do that is by, erecting expressways to alleviate the congestions on the road. Now that makes sense up to a certain point, but at the end of the day, if you keep on making more expressways, does it make sense? Because a lot of people don't own cars still. So, for me, I'm a advocate that we should focus more on improving our transportation system, subways, LRTs, whatnots, to link from north to south to east to west. But anyway, an article at Rappler.com, a group is slamming a proposed, here's an interesting part, an expressway of all places along, not along, on top of the Pasig River. So is this a good solution? Well, according to them, a problem, it is a problem, not a solution. So imagine our Pasig River, which is well known, and they're going to erect a skyway on top of it. Will this decongest or create more problems than necessary here? Anyway, so the proposed, anyway, this is still a proposal, so nothing set in stone. Anyway, so the proposed Pasig River Expressway, or PAREX, which is a project of San Miguel. Again, San Miguel, if you're going to create more projects, want to create more infrastructure for transportation rather than just highways. I think maybe it's because it's easier to erect those highways rather than consider the intricacies of creating a subway or train system that connects the entire city here. Even I would like to see one day that you can connect both all regions from Luzon, Visayas to Mindanao, from all the way to Lawag, all the way to Davao, or all the way to Cotabato. That would be a dream come true. Anyway, so the SMC company presented this to the for its plans, which is going to cost almost 100 billion pesos. So it's not going to be cheap, and they plan to erect this on top of the Pasig River, which would connect, as mentioned, Manila to Pasig. Now, I like the idea, but according to the President Ramon Ang, stating it is a solution within solution, I tend to disagree, because we don't need more highways. We need more basic transportation for people to access, because if majority of our population can't even use the road, then what's the whole point? Obviously, it makes sense for them so that they can charge in the tollways, so to make more money out of it. So maybe we could look at other projects that's more of urgent need for our country here. Anyway, at the very least, at least the nearly completed or finished structure on the Skyway Stage 3, which links the north and the south to ease the congestion. But what's interesting here is, since they've opened the Skyway Stage 3, guess what happened? Nearby roads that have reported heavy traffic only after of a year of operation. So, meaning, didn't they even consider the complexities of not just erecting any roads, and then obviously you need ramps going up and down for vehicles to access it. Obviously, there's going to be unintended consequences, and have they done a lot necessary research to avoid this? And it's kind of disappointing, since it's the taxpayers who's paying for this construction. Anyway, and even SMC representatives even admitted during the consultation that the PAREX will only increase traffic in service areas. So why even bother with it? Unless you can find ways to ease the congestion, then that's something you would consider. But if it's going to increase it, then why even pursue it, right? Hopefully, our government officials can see the downside of pursuing this project. Obviously, it's going to cost a lot of money, and then it's going to cost a lot of trouble in terms of the severity of additional traffic at the ground level, while the ongoing traffic is, you can just imagine when they were erecting the Skyway 3 before, right? So the traffic is horrendous, if you think about it. And obviously, there's another component that one has to consider. And obviously, demolishing or adding a sky on top of a river has an impact in terms of environmental and even historical. Actually, if they're going to do that, it's going to cover up, the Jones Bridge as well as Quezon Bridge, which is very popular, right? Connecting different areas in the Metro Manila area. You can just imagine, if you're going to block a certain view, just imagine in the Luneta Park, the Rizal Monument, if you're going to take a picture, for souvenir and so forth, there's a building at the back. I don't know how it got past inspection that they were able to erect, and then it's a big photobomb photo every time you take a photo with Rizal, and you can see a buildings erect at the back. So that's kind of disappointing, and it doesn't look good if you're a tourist and you see what's this building at the back. How was it able to erect that high? Anyway. And finally, so we're talking about sports, continuing with now the start of the Tokyo Olympics. Actually, there was issues regarding should the Tokyo Olympics this year have continued or have been postponed to maybe even next year. And according to CNBC.com, the IOC stated that all possible safety measures have been taken, and I was pretty apprehensive when they mentioned this. Obviously, the safety and concerns of athletes should be tantamount, right? And obviously, first there was mentioned that participants, I don't know, spectators from Japan could watch the event. Well, that was reversed eventually because of the increase of cases in Japan. So you have no spectators from abroad and then in Japan. So there's no one watching the events anymore, apart from obviously from the newscast or TV broadcast. Obviously, the experience is totally different. Will it affect the performance, the ambiance? Maybe, maybe not. Obviously, for those athletes who work so hard to get to that point. But the question is, can they guarantee the safety? And what's alarming here in their article, they've done all they can, but they cannot guarantee the safety. And there have been reports that even people who are in the Olympic Village are having tested positive. So how they contract that, it's kind of concerning, right? But at the end of the day, it's a money making business, and they made commitments. And obviously, this has a significant impact on athletes, which we'll talk about in a bit. So all of this, the number one issue is the advertisers, those who have bought rights to air the Tokyo Games here. Anyway, the International Olympic Committee, or IOC, they mentioned that they've done all they can to ensure the safety of the games. Well, done all they can. Then they need to work harder to avoid that, because it would be unfair. Just imagine if you're an athlete, then you're preparing for most of your life, and then you got tested positive for some reason, through no fault of yours, and then you'll be disqualified from competing, right? We don't want that. We want, the point of the Olympics is to bring people closer together, to unite, under one banner and so forth. And even according to Christoph Duby of the IOC Olympic Executive Director, he goes on saying everything that can be done, everything that was recommended by all experts, some of them here with us to deliver these games, we have done. But again, it's not a foolproof way, because if those were, if there was an outbreak to happen, obviously we don't want that to happen. But if it were, it could be the catastrophic here. You could just imagine. And, there are a lot of challenges that is going to persist. You can just imagine hearing the news on the Team USA players who tested positive, couldn't even join with the rest of the team. So you can just imagine other athletes who are vying for a medal in the event, and then they were told, oops, you can't go because you tested positive. So can't imagine the ordeal that those athletes has to go to, apart from actually competing in the first place, right? And obviously there have been criticisms regarding the measures were not enough. They were considering it cheap measures, as said. Now, whether that's true or not, we have to wait and see, at the end of the day, whether that was true or not. And some of the challenges that the Olympics committee has mentioned, there were already 11 athletes that have tested positive, as I mentioned. So having to deal with this, not just worry about the spread on itself, but having to tell those players you can't compete anymore, right? Meaning years of your training have been gone down the drain. Anyway, what the WHO, Mr. Tedros, who's the Director General, is stating that the mark of a success is making sure that any cases are identified, isolated, traced, and cared. Well, if you cannot guarantee the safety, why not just postpone it, right? But obviously, money is the key driver here. That's why the show must go on. So to those who are, who won medals today or in the Olympics, then congrats to them. You know, it is what it is, right? You have to make do with what the current situation is. As mentioned, the show must go on, so to speak, right? And for those who are competing right now, which is good news for us. Special shout out to our gold medal winner, Miss Heidelin Diaz, for winning gold in weightlifting. So it's our first ever gold in nearly a century, right? And within my lifetime, this is the first ever gold that we've witnessed. So it's pretty tremendous, and we've discussed this. I think last Friday when we said, or we talked about that. The rewards that comes with winning gold is winning almost 30 million pesos, which is not bad. But my issue here is obviously we need to reward our athletes for doing their best, but not just going to reward them, but what happens afterward. We should be greedy here. If Miss Diaz could win one, maybe in the next Olympics, I think she is current. How old is she? I think she's only 30 years old. So in the next iteration, she'll be mid 30s. So there's still a chance, and we need to help her get to her dreams and being able to win another gold that would bring more prestige to our country. And not just that, but as I mentioned before, our best bet for winning gold is not in team competition. It has always been in individual events. And if the government can see it, and if private and companies, corporations are going to support our athletes here, support those individual events that has the best chance of gaining traction, whether it's boxing, swimming, maybe not. Gymnastics is another one because it takes a lot of skills, and you don't have to be tall to win. And you've seen in China or even the US, they're not very tall athletes, so we can have a chance. Yeah, then you have fencing and many other sports. I think I forgot which event I think skating is another one, and many more. So you could analyze, look at it, which event we have a better chance of success, then pour in our financial resources to help them succeed. And it's a beneficial, right? Companies who are supporting will be recognized, then the government will be recognized as well, and it's a positive cycle which I think everyone can benefit, right? Which I can see no reason why the government, corporations, and in helping our athletes here. Obviously, it brings more credence, more prestige to our nation here, which could 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 do more, do good than do bad here in our case here. And obviously, uh, kudos for Miss Diaz for winning it. Actually, I just saw the clip of her winning the gold event. It's not easy weightlifting. Can't imagine, because when she was deadlifting it, I saw her. She had to balance her feet. What? I've seen in other incidents where if you don't balance your body, your feet, and coordinate properly, you might slip, you might get injured. In her case, she was able to push through. Obviously, every round that she was competing with China, the weight was getting bigger, heavier, and heavier. And to be able to overcome it, just goes to show you, working hard does pay off here, literally and figuratively. And you know seeing her reaction of winning gold, not just for herself but for the country, for our country, is tremendous. Congrats to her. Anyway, I think that concludes our discussion again. Thanks again for watching. Come back again for on Wednesday for more business update. And if you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. Also, you can check out my other videos, Business Focus Live, my live stream every Friday, or you can check out my guides, tutorials, and tips, or even check out my interviews in Business Talk or Biz Talk. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.